My passion for mills started when I was 4 years old. I went on a school trip to a windmill, part of the Harvest Festival celebrations, and I just caught the bug. I saw the mill turning from about a mile away from the coach window and I fell in love, and I just knew that I had to be part of that scene. A mill lives at the heart of a community. Mills were as common as a church. There were at least one in every village, and towns, cities had tens of mills, and a mill would actually feed the community and also the livestock. So a farmer would take grain to the mill to be ground into flour for human consumption, and also it would take his grain to the mill to be ground into animal feed, which then in turn fed the community as well. So a mill sat at the very heart of every community. From the late 1960s onwards, there was a big revival and interest in mills. Local communities would see their mill falling into disrepair, and action groups were set up to try and save the mill, and in some cases even returning it back to working order. So the skills of a millwright that had also been in decline with the mills also saw a revival. So now we're getting more and more mills that can operate, so therefore a millwright is more and more in demand. We need to be good at stone masonry, millstone dressing. We have to be cabinet makers, carpenters, iron founders. We work with brass bearings, wooden machinery, iron machinery, you name it. We do the full plethora of skills, and we need to be good at them. A mill is actually a machine, so the building is part of the machine. So whether it's brick, whether it's stone, that is the basis of a machine. A wooden structure is exactly the same. The machinery within the mill is also supported by a wooden structure. Here we actually got millstones that are sat on a hearse frame and on a stone frame. We have wooden cogs and gears, we have wooden water wheels, we have iron water wheels and iron cogs and gears. The progression from early mills to later mills is where you see in the earlier mills more timber machinery and shafting, and the later mills were more iron. This is just a progression through the revolution, the industrial revolution if you like. A wooden wheel would take several craftsmen weeks to make, whereas an iron wheel, once you've made the pattern for it, it's just a casting and you can reproduce that casting from that pattern. It was a progression. Wooden machinery was more prone to failure. You know, there was more plain wooden machinery, whereas iron, that was more resilient and less susceptible to rot or woodworm or any other thing that could damage it. In the mills we do have both wooden machinery running with iron machinery, especially with the teeth. Running iron on iron is very noisy, wears quite rapidly, and there's no fail-safe if something was to jam in the mill. Whereas if one set of teeth are wooden and another set of iron, get a very smooth running combination, but the wooden teeth are sacrificial, so they take the wear and tear. They're designed to be replaced fairly easily, so they'll take the wear and tear over long term, but if something jams in the mill and suddenly stops it, instead of wrecking a machine, you'll probably break 2 or 3 teeth off a cog, which can be replaced. So it's almost a fail-safe. As a millwright, we all look to repair rather than replace. If something can be repaired, we will do. What we do as millwrights as well is we always source the correct materials where necessary. So if we're using timber for water wheels, etc., we use timber that will be resilient. We quite often use oak or elm. We've also started using iron water wheels, and where we've had wrought iron buckets that tend to rot quite quickly, we've replaced with Corten steel, which is slightly thicker, but the corrosion on Corten steel gives it a layer of protection, so it gives a longer life and longer serviceability than the original wrought iron work. A mill needs to be maintained correctly. It's a working machine. It's like your car. You wouldn't run it for years on end without doing some care and maintenance. And because mills are very, very basic, they've got basic bearings, they need regular maintenance. Some of it is daily, some of the maintenance and greasing and oiling you would perform before running the mill. Some of the things we do weekly and monthly and so on. We start at the top of the mill and we go through, we check every single bearing, we oil and grease where needed. The teeth of iron gears we do tend to grease as and when needed, right down to the water wheel shaft that we grease every day. And sometimes if we're running all day, we can stop the mill so far through the day and grease again. Absolutely imperative, because the mill will run out quicker if you don't grease and oil bearings in time. We also, when we finish running the mill for the day, we feel for hot bearings. That's an indication of wear and tear. It also could be the cause of a fire in a mill. So we do need, when we shut down, to check that everything is cooled off and that there's nothing that's going to be smouldering away. We use traditional materials and traditional methods to maintain wind and water mills. And wind and water mills, by their very nature, run from renewable energy. They are at the mercy of Mother Nature, so invariably they need repairing, they're open to the elements. So this is where traditional millwrights come in and do the repairs. You know, we get floods, we get gales, and we get the inherent damage that comes with those as well. With a mill using natural power, it's therefore green energy, it's energy efficient. The water mill that we're sat in uses the power of a brook to drive its machinery. It doesn't need anything else, any other input other than the power of water. And from that, we're actually producing a healthy whole food. And we're also using local farmers to supply the grain. So the food miles are reduced, and we're producing a very healthy whole food. Stone grinding is a one-shot process where grain passes between two millstones. So the goodness of every layer of the grain is preserved, and it's evident in the product that's finished, whether it's wholemeal, whether it's white flour, polenta, oats, whatever. Whatever goes through a mill retains its goodness and also its flavour. You can taste the difference, you can smell the difference if you use products that's been ground in a traditional way. With it being water powered, there's absolutely no emissions at all. There's no byproduct, there's no waste product. Everything that comes into the mill is a usable product at the end of the day. Even the bran from grinding is usable. So there's no byproduct and there's no waste. The thing with millwrighting is it's not a job that everybody would want to do. A mill doesn't go wrong on a nice, warm, sunny day. It's normally the middle of the night when it's blowing a gale. You can be working in very dangerous locations, in very hazardous circumstances. You could be working on top of a windmill in a gale. You could be working trying to stop a water mill in flood, etc. The hours of call out could be 24 hours a day. Normally these things are miles and miles away, so to get people interested, you know, you've got to be willing to travel anywhere in the country and do any job once you arrive on site. So to get the mindset of knowing what tools you're going to need or anticipating what tools you're going to need, you've got to think about what might be wrong when you get there. So it's a very difficult job in that respect, but once you've got the idea of what you're going to need and you can do the job correctly, it's very, very rewarding. The more and more people we can enthuse to get hands on, they'll find it's a very, very rewarding role.